The day the Soviet Union ran out of money. At first, nothing dramatic happened. There was no announcement, no panic in the streets, no moment when the lights suddenly went out. Factories opened as usual, trains ran, workers showed up, collected wages, and went home. On paper, the Soviet Union was still one of the largest economies on Earth, and yet, by the late 1980s, the country had reached a strange point in history. It had money, it had workers, it had factories, but it could no longer make its system move. Not because anyone stole everything, not because the idea was obviously foolish, but because the system had quietly stopped knowing what money was supposed to do. This is the story of how that happened, and why it made perfect sense, right up until it didn't. The consequences appeared long before the cause was understood. Stores were open, but shelves were thin. Paychecks arrived on time, but people saved less trust with each one. Official prices stayed low, while unofficial ones drifted upward. The economy was not collapsing, it was drifting, and drift is harder to see than disaster. To understand why, you have to go back to the beginning, when the system worked exactly as intended. After the Russian Revolution, the Soviet Union faced a simple problem with a radical answer. Markets were unpredictable, prices fluctuated, people profited unevenly. The solution was to remove uncertainty itself. Instead of letting supply and demand decide what was produced, planners would decide. Instead of prices adjusting, prices would be fixed. Instead of profit guiding behavior, quotas would. It was not chaos they feared, it was waste. If the state could see everything, measure everything, and plan everything, resources could be used efficiently and fairly. Naturally, this required a lot of planning, so the Soviet Union built one of the largest bureaucratic systems ever attempted. Ministries planned output, factories reported production, banks distributed money according to the plan. Money in this system was not a signal, it was a tool. You didn't earn money to express value, you received money because the plan said you should. And for a time this worked. Industrial output surged, literacy rose, basic needs were met more evenly than before. The system felt stable, which was exactly the problem. In a planned economy, success is measured differently. A factory manager was not rewarded for making what people wanted. They were rewarded for meeting targets. Produce 10,000 shoes and you were successful. Whether the shoes fit was a separate matter, so managers optimized for the measurable. If weight was counted, they made heavier goods. If quantity was counted, quality declined. If a quota could be met early, production slowed to avoid raising next year's target. Of course, no one thought of this as gaming the system. They thought of it as survival, because once targets increased, they rarely came back down. Money followed the same logic. Wages were paid regardless of demand. Prices were fixed regardless of scarcity. Losses were covered regardless of performance. If a factory failed, the state absorbed the cost. After all, it was all one system. Naturally, this removed risk. It also removed feedback. Money stopped being a message and became a routine. And routines can continue long after they stop making sense. Over time, the gap widened. The state kept producing money to pay wages and fund enterprises, but production did not respond the way it would in a market. If something was scarce, prices could not rise to signal it. If something was unwanted, prices could not fall. So shortages persisted, surpluses accumulated, and planners filled the gap with paperwork. The economy looked stable, it felt predictable, which made it very difficult to see what was breaking underneath. By the 1970s, the Soviet Union was spending more to keep the system running, not on innovation, not on flexibility, but on compensation. If productivity lagged, money filled the gap. If inefficiency appeared, money smoothed it over. From the outside, this looked generous. From the inside, it felt normal. Wages rose slowly, prices stayed low, employment was guaranteed, and so people adapted. Why rush if effort wasn't rewarded? Why innovate if change increased risk? Why question targets if meeting them kept everything calm? The system rewarded stability, and stability rewarded sameness. At this point, money began to behave strangely. People had it, but they didn't trust it to get what they needed. Savings lost meaning when there was nothing to buy. Wages lost motivation when effort made little difference, so value shifted elsewhere. Connections mattered more than currency. Access mattered more than income. Officially, money still worked. Unofficially, it was becoming symbolic. The state responded in the only way it knew how. More planning, more coordination, more money to keep everything balanced. After all, no single failure was catastrophic. Each problem was manageable, each shortage temporary, each fix reasonable. The plan worked exactly as designed. It just required constant adjustment to remain believable. By the 1980s, the system had reached a fragile equilibrium. Factories produced because they were paid to. Workers worked because they were guaranteed employment. Banks distributed funds because the plan demanded it, but no one was responding to real demand. The economy moved, but without direction, like a machine running without knowing its purpose. Then came reform. Leaders began to notice what citizens already felt. The system was stable but brittle, predictable but rigid, safe but exhausted, so they tried to introduce flexibility. Some autonomy for enterprises, some price adjustments, some market-like incentives. Naturally, this exposed the problem. Once enterprises could keep profits, losses mattered. Once prices moved, shortages became visible. Once money was supposed to signal value again, it revealed that no one knew what things were worth. Trust, once lost, does not return quickly. As reforms progressed, contradictions multiplied. Enterprises raised wages without raising productivity. Money increased faster than goods. Prices, when freed, jumped. People had more money and less confidence. Savings evaporated. Spending rushed forward. The meaning of money thinned. The Soviet Union did not suddenly run out of currency. It ran out of belief. By the end, the system could no longer coordinate itself. Planning no longer aligned behavior. Money no longer guided decisions. Incentives pointed in opposite directions. The collapse was not a bang. It was a quiet admission that the system could no longer tell people what to do, or why. Looking back, it is tempting to call this inevitable, but inevitability only appears obvious afterward. At each step, decisions were rational, stability was valuable, risk was dangerous, control felt responsible, and for a long time it worked. That is what makes the story unsettling. Not that the system failed, but that it failed by succeeding too well, at the wrong things. The Soviet Union did not run out of money in a technical sense. It ran out of what money was supposed to provide: information, incentives, trust. Without those, currency becomes noise, and systems, no matter how carefully designed, begin to drift, quietly, predictably, until one day they can no longer move at all.